attending later in the meeting, but he is the district counselor for this particular project location. And again, thanks a million, and please join me in welcoming Jana and Jane from MBTW and Shoreplan, and they'll walk you through what we've done to date and what we are proposing as a conceptual plan for this project at this date. Thanks. Jana, go ahead.
Okay, great.
Jana, sorry, it's Jen interrupting you. My apologies. I've just learned that our YouTube live stream has been delayed. So we know that there's lots of people probably waiting and we're working on it. So thanks. And I won't interrupt again. I'll just get that live stream going for everyone.
Okay,
go ahead,
great.
Jana.
Great. Thanks, Jen. So if we could advance to the next slide. Great. So good day, everyone, and thanks for taking the time to participate in this presentation. As Neil has noted, my name is Jana Joyce, and I'm a principal and senior landscape architect at the MBTW Group in Toronto. I'll be giving part of today's presentation along with my consulting team member, Jane Graham, who is the principal and senior coastal engineer with Shoreplan Engineering Limited. Both of us will also participate in the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Next slide, please. And actually, if we could just advance one more. Perfect. So the agenda for today's event includes general information about the project, a summary of important things to know. We're also going to provide some information about the Promenade project specifically, as well as project enhancements. And this will be followed by a Mentimeter presentation, which is a live interactive question and poll that Jen had already noted. And then we'll follow all of this with a Q&A session. Next slide, please. The City of Kingston's current strategic plan is built upon 5 measurable priorities, one of which relates to the development of healthy citizens and vibrant spaces. Next slide, please. The first objective under the Foster Healthy Citizens and Vibrant Spaces priority includes the implementation of the Confederation Basin Breakwall Promenade project, among other waterfront park rejuvenation initiatives. Next slide, please. The Confederation Basin Promenade project proposes a new accessible walkway and public space experience built upon the existing stone breakwall that shelters Flora MacDonald Confederation Basin. An artist rendering was prepared that shows what the Promenade project might look like. There will be more renderings throughout the presentation to help you envision what the project will look like when it's built. Next slide, please. The project area of consideration includes the entire existing breakwall structure, a portion of the basin, and a small section of Battery Park where the new promenade is proposed to connect. A portion of the basin is included in the scope of work to ensure that any proposed swimming features can be safely integrated into the project. Next slide, please. The 2016 Waterfront Master Plan process recommended the Promenade project and established a high-level scope of work which was approved by Council. Please do visit the project website for more information about the 2016 Waterfront Master Plan and the Promenade project conceptual design process. Next slide, please. This is the second formal public meeting related to the project. This meeting will include some opportunities for the community to provide feedback. And just as a reminder, the council approved budget for the project is $2.695 million. Next slide, please. Today's meeting will be available on the city's YouTube channel with a link available on the project webpage. Live feedback is encouraged during this meeting and will be tabulated as part of the public engagement response. Please visit Get Involved Kingston to complete the survey and have your say on the Confederation Basin Promenade project. A summary of the feedback received through the Get Involved Kingston will be available on the project webpage a little bit later this fall. Next slide, please. We would like to take a moment to share the highlights from the first public the first round of public engagement. And there were a series of activities that unfolded. A public online open house was conducted on July 12th. A series of information panels were displayed in Battery Park and online on the project webpage. And there was also an online survey available through Get Involved Kingston, which was available between July 12th and August 3rd of 2021. We thank everyone who participated. The feedback that we got through that process was great. The full report from these engagement activities is available on the project webpage. The feedback received during the first engagement was compiled into categories, and recurring comments and themes were noted. Generally, the community was in support of the Promenade project, as it would enhance the unique views of the area and provide a barrier-free access route along the Breakwall. Feedback also indicated that there was interest and preferences for the project enhancements should diverse sources of funding become available. Next slide, please. Responses from this event will be provided to the consultant team and city staff and will be used to inform the design confirmation process, which is the next step in the project. Please visit the city website and the project page to stay up to date on the public engagement process. Your feedback is important in shaping the outcome of this unique and distinctive waterfront amenity. Next slide, please. As Neil has noted, Lori Paquin is the project manager for the project, and she is with the Parks and Shoreline and Engineering Services Department. Her phone number is 613-546-4291, extension 2128. And should you have any more questions or wish to speak directly to Lori, she can make herself available. Next slide, please. The next part of this presentation introduces the design team and outlines what we've learned about the Promenade project. Please note that this information was presented in the first public meeting. However, we are repeating it here so that newcomers to the engagement process can be brought up to speed. The city has retained a consulting team, including landscape architects and engineers, to examine the existing conditions of the breakwall and develop a feasible design for the Promenade project. The MBTW Group is a landscape architect and urban design firm. Shoreplan Engineering specializes in coastal and structural engineering. Other team consultants include electrical and lighting engineering and creative design consulting. Next slide, please. The MBTW Group and Shoreplan Engineering have worked together on numerous projects and have experience with construction in similar circumstances. For example, Tannery Park in the town of Oakville and the Frenchman's Bay Harbor entrance in Pickering share similar characteristics and challenges with the Promenade project. I will now hand the presentation over to Jane Graham, who will present information about the breakwall and proposed walkway solutions.
Thanks, Jenna. Hello, I'm Jane Graham, and I'm presenting some of the important things to know about the structure. Could we have the next slide? Thanks. Initially, the breakwater was inspected by the team to understand how it was constructed back in the 1990s. We looked at the existing construction drawings, and we carried out a detailed inspection of the structure above water and as a drone survey. Next slide, please. The breakwater is constructed in a standard or typical manner. It has an outer layer of large stones called armor stone and an underlayer of smaller stones, and both those layers go over top of core stones. The inner core is the most suitable location to build the walkway. It's important to note that the lake-facing side of the breakwall is subject to high wave energy and has been designed accordingly. Next slide, please. The Confederation Basin Breakwall is impacted by large waves during storm events. To understand the wave forces that will affect the proposed walkway, our team looked at and modeled the wave action from various wave conditions. Next slide, please. The worst case scenario is a large storm event that occurs during high water levels, when the waves are coming from the west or southwest direction. Waves can be as high as 2.5 meters on the lake-facing side of the breakwall, and specifically the area at the bend would be hit by the most significant wave action. Next slide, please. During storms, when there's high winds and high water levels, the waves will likely spray over top of the lake-facing side of the breakwall, and it's likely that this will occur, or spray will occur on a regular basis. The design team and the city staff are evaluating how to make the walkway the safest it can be. Next slide, please. Another important thing to note is the navigation lights. The breakwall is a significant structure in Lake Ontario, which is within navigable waters. The breakwall must be equipped with navigation lights, and they'll be maintained. There will be lights in the future, as well as there are now. Next slide, please. Earlier this year, the team explored various options for constructing the walkway on the breakwall. The options included a concrete walkway on piles, a concrete walkway without piles, or a pile-supported structure that would be above the breakwater. Next slide, please. The concrete walkway within the breakwater was considered the most suitable. Building the walkway would require rearranging the large armor stones on the surface to make space for the walkway, and constructing a low wall and below grade structure to resist the wave action. Thank you. I'll return the presentation back to Janet.
Great, thanks, Jane. Another important thing to know, which we've touched on a little bit earlier in the presentation, is that the $2.695 million budget was approved already by Council for the Promenade project. Preliminary estimates indicate that approximately 240 linear meters of walkway could be constructed for this amount. The 240 meter length of walkway would extend to approximately the bend in the breakwall structure. And on this slide, you can see generally where the end point of the 240 meters would land. Next slide, please. Since the last round of public engagement, the team's been busy refining the conceptual design for the Promenade project, which includes a connection point at Battery Park, a 3-meter wide promenade walkway, including lighting, coordinated with navigation lights, a lookout area at the bend, a water's edge amenity with restricted boat access, seating opportunities, and artful elements. Next slide, please. The connection to Battery Park is envisioned to include a widened entry area, bollards, a low wall on the lake side, seating opportunities, lighting, and a bumper rail on the basin side. It is anticipated that pavement or wall surfaces could be constructed with artistic treatments. And what you see in front of you here is an artist's rendering of what the connection to Battery Park might look like. Next slide, please. The promenade walkway is designed to be a 3-meter wide walkway bordered by a low wall on the lakeside. And the low wall on the lakeside is the wall that Jane has just referenced in her part of the presentation. There's also a bumper rail proposed on the basin side, just to help protect like wheelchairs and strollers, and those who may have some challenges visually, just ensure that they know where the edge of that walkway is. The bumper rail also allows water to drain away from the walkway surface should water spray and wave overtopping occur. Lighting, both walkway and navigation, is anticipated to be coordinated with the low wall construction. Surfacing options for the promenade are currently being explored. However, the walkway will meet the requirements of the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, or the AODA. Next slide, please. The lookout area is envisioned to be a widened area within the bend of the breakwall, providing excellent views of the surrounding area. This unique feature is to include seating opportunities and lighting. Next slide, please. A floating water's edge access amenity is proposed approximately halfway along the length of the promenade, where the waters are protected and calmer. It would be directly connected to the promenade walkway with a ramp. Buoys or markers may be used to indicate motorized boating limits in proximity to the floating platform. This will help protect the area from residual electrical currents and conflicts from nearby motorized watercraft. And we have a slightly zoomed in look on the next slide, so you can see that a little bit better. So the floating platform could be used for swimming, for a small non-motorized watercraft use, model sailboats, fishing, and viewing. And you can see the ramp connection to the promenade. Next slide, please. So as a reminder, the promenade project presented today reflects the approved budget for the project. In summary, the main features of the project include the connection to Battery Park, the promenade walkway itself, including lighting and navigational lighting, the lookout at the bend, the water's edge access amenity, seating and opportunities, and artful elements. Next slide, please. The next part of the presentation will focus a little bit more on the project enhancements. Project enhancements are design upgrades not included in the current approved budget. Based on the results of public engagement and approval by City Council, project enhancements may be considered subject to the ability to secure diverse sources of funding. Previous public engagement indicated that there was support for project enhancements. This presentation includes more information on what the project enhancements may look like so that we can continue the conversation and obtain some additional feedback. Next slide, please. Based on feedback collected back in June, the number one ranked project enhancements was extending the walkway to the existing lighthouse or beacon and providing a lookout at the base of the beacon structure. This would add approximately 230 meters of walkway length to the original 240 meters of walkway. A low wall along the lake side of the walkway would still be required for safety and structural reasons. And this artist rendering shows an idea of what that extended walkway and lookout area around the beacon might look like. Next slide, please. The number two ranked project enhancements was to create a larger entry area off Battery Park, designed with upgraded site furnishings, bollard lighting, or custom architectural elements. This enhancement would take advantage of the Breakwall's wider footprint where it meets Battery Park. And if you recall earlier in the presentation, within the project itself, this area was narrower and there was less room for different kinds of seating opportunities and other upgraded elements. Next slide, please. The number three ranked project enhancements was the provision of an enhanced swimming space amenity for an improved deep water swimming experience. This feature could include a large floating platform system that provides multifunction venue for competitive and informal swimming activities. And like the more modest swimming amenity that's proposed as part of the Promenade project, buoys or markers may be used to indicate motorized boating limits in proximity to the floating platform itself. And this again will help protect the area from residual electrical currents and conflicts from nearby motorized watercraft. Next slide, please. The number four ranked project enhancements was the inclusion of public art, such as freestanding sculptures, interactive, kinetic, or integrated features. Next slide, please. This is the end of the formal presentation, and I would like to turn the presentation back over to Jen, who is going to lead us through a fun and interactive exercise to collect feedback on the Confederation Basin Promenade project. And forgive me, Jen, if this is where when we're doing Mentimeter, I'll turn my mic off and let you carry on.
Yeah, no, that's great, Jana. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jen.
So for Mentimeter, I included some instructions earlier in the presentation, but I will review them with everyone now. To join, and like I said before, your participation is anonymous. Please have a mobile device or a tablet like an iPad, or you can open another window in your preferred internet browser. If you're here in Zoom, I'm going to put a link into the chat and you can click on that link and it will take you over to Mentimeter. If you are following us on Zoom, or sorry, if you're following us on YouTube, we encourage you to join along too. And you will go to menti.com and use the code 7590. And going to just wait a couple of minutes to make sure that everyone can join in. Perhaps if you are, I'm just going to take a look. See, Susan, I see that you have your hand up. Maybe if you can drop into the chat if you have a question about Mentimeter and participating that way, or if you have a question that you would like to ask about the project. Okay, so I see a couple of people have logged into Mentimeter. And the first question is, what do you like most about the proposed conceptual plan? And Neil, this would be a great time if you wanted to unmute yourself. You can talk about those features that are in the proposed conceptual plan a couple of slides ago.
Thanks, Jen. Just for my information, are we going to be receiving a pool of comments, sort of just words, and then they will just pile up and that will help?
That's right. Yep, that's right. So I'm sharing my screen right now. And what you see are the different ideas or the different things that people like most about the proposed conceptual plan. You can enter as many things that you like about it. Some of the things that we heard in the earlier rounds of engagement that people liked about Confederation Basin were the views and the waterfront and accessibility. So when you think about the proposed conceptual plan, think about those artist renderings and the things that you like about them.
And maybe just one more question, Jen, for folks who are not only participating through the Mentimeter, there will be an opportunity to provide feedback online at a later date, right?
Yep, that's right, Neil. The survey on Get Involved Kingston is open now. And to make sure that we receive feedback in a consistent way, the questions that we have for you on Mentimeter right now are the same ones that you will see on Get Involved Kingston. So that way, anything that you share here and you have a different idea afterwards, please go to Get Involved Kingston.
Well, I'd be happy to describe some of the basic elements of the actual proposed conceptual plan that Jana presented. Primarily, the hard surface walkway is the core element to the project. It has a low wall on the lake side of the basin, and on the interior side is a low accessibility barrier to keep people on the path. The project does include furniture. At this conceptual stage, that furniture is not laid out yet, but it would include benches and furniture. The walkway is, and Jana, forgive me if you've already mentioned this, but the proposed walkway is 3 meters wide in our conceptual plan, and that would be sort of from the interior of the seawall side to the back of the walkway, or the basin side of the walkway.
That's correct, Neil. Yeah, we're looking to have a 3 meter clear dimension between the base of the wall and the bumper rail on the basin side.
And that's in Imperial, that's 10 feet for those people who like Imperial. And for perspective, the walkway in Breakwater Park that we recently built out of concrete is 3.5 meters wide. The other elements that will be included as a widened lookout area at the corner. The views into the lake are quite remarkable from that prospect, and it will have multiple seating opportunities, places for people to sort of go to and return back to shore from, or opportunities to linger and contemplate the experience. And then the final sort of key element that is proposed as part of our concept plan is the small to mid-sized swimming platform located midway down the promenade on the basin side.
I've put up the next question in Mentimeter. If you have a mobile device, what will happen is something will pop up and it says the presenter has advanced the slides. So you can tap that and you'll go on to the next screen. This question is, what do you like least about the proposed conceptual plan? Jana and Neil just talked about those core features in the conceptual plan. So now we would like to know what you like least.
I like the comment about the benches only being on the lakeside. We noticed that as well. I think we would likely be developing a combination, but that will really come out in the detailed design process. But thanks for that comment.
So just as a couple of reminders, your feedback, both here on Mentimeter and on Get Involved Kingston, your personal information is anonymous. So please do be as forward and as honest about what you do and do not like about the conceptual plan so that Neil and the consulting team can go back and come forward with some, I believe you call them detailed designs. I do the engagement and they do. We sometimes talk about our different terminology. See some comments about a braille strip and questions about seating opportunities. So that's a good one. There will be a formal Q&A part of this presentation. So we can put a pin in that one and you can ask it again in the Q&A portion. And then all of the answers that are submitted tonight through Mentimeter are also sent along to the project team so that they can consider those ideas.
Yeah, I see a number of questions related to accessibility, Jen, and it might be fair to explain to the audience that as with all of our capital development projects, city staff and consultants meet with our volunteer council appointed municipal accessibility advisory committee members who help review the designs and make sure that we're meeting our local facility accessibility design standards, as well as the Ontario accessibility for Ontarians with disabilities standards. But we'll take your comments and we'll be funneling them through the consultant into the design process. But there are a number of touch points for review, both during design and actually during and following construction with our local accessibility committee. Thank you.
Okay, a couple of extra comments in there. I'm going to go along to the next slide. So on the previous one, what did you not like about the proposed concept? I did see that there was a comment in there about public art. Now, public art is one of the proposed project enhancements. So what do you like most about those proposed project enhancements? And Neil, can you, for everyone here, can you just list off those proposed project enhancements?
Yes, there's 4. In no particular order. Extending the walkway all the way to the lighthouse is one. Another option is making the walkway wider and increasing the size of the entry area and adding more architectural public realm elements would be another item. Growing the deep water swimming experience in the basin to a much larger scale floating swimming facility would be a third option, and the fourth option would be to add public art. And again, just to qualify, none of these scenarios is within the current approved budget. and we are consulting on community interest in them should other sources of funding than the city become available.
See some comments coming in. You can, there's no limit on the number of things that you can type into this area. By now, you should have had a prompt come up on your mobile device that says that I've advanced the presentation so that you can type those in. Like I said, you can do that on a mobile device or a Chrome browser. If you're following along on YouTube, please participate. I'm going to say that URL and code again. It's menti.com and the code is 75903699. We have more typed comments on the proposed enhancements. So this is always nice to see lots of comments about water access and extending the walkway, widened entrance, more about water access. Being mindful of the time and just wanting to make sure that we leave enough time for Q&A, I'm going to go to the next slide. And this is what do you like least about the proposed project enhancements? So going back a couple of slides ago, somebody had entered in something about public art. You know, they felt that it wasn't a priority if it wasn't included in the proposed budget or in the approved budget. This would be a spot where you could enter that here. Just to reiterate, these are the same questions that are on Get Involved Kingston so that we can collect the same information no matter how we choose to go out and engage with you or how you decide to come to us with your ideas.
Jen, do you have some music you could play at the same time?
You know what, I was just thinking that actually. I was wondering whether or not we should get some, you know, soundscapes from the breakwater itself to, you know, for the mood. Yeah, no, I was definitely thinking that. I didn't know also if you were offering to sing. I'm not offering to sing, but actually we have talked about including music in our public engagement sessions, especially as we open together.
I was thinking more like the Jeopardy theme music from the game show.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, but I didn't want to put pressure on people for, you know, what they like least about the proposed project enhancements, because then it's like, you know, maybe it would put pressure on like everybody likes the proposed project enhancements, but yeah, crickets. I'm in favor of the sounds of the waterfront and the waves. Neil, there's your reinforcement about benches that don't face the lake. Okay, going to go on to the next one so that Neil or I don't feel obligated to break into song or make wave noises. This one's a little bit different. So you should have gotten a prompt on your mobile device or however you're using Mentimeter that I've advanced the slide. And this one is a ranking one. So the previous two slides, we asked you to verbally tell us what you liked least or most. And this one, we're asking you to choose, rank them in order with first to least. So number one would be the proposed enhancement that you like the most. and then go down like that. This question is optional. Your feedback is anonymous. And this one, we like using this one, or I know I like using these types of questions to get feedback from the public, because it gives us a clear sense of how people are feeling. And like I said, this is the same question that is on Get Involved Kingston. If you participated in the first public engagement session or on Get Involved Kingston, this question may look familiar because we did ask it before. And this helps the project team get a sense of how people are feeling along the engagement journey.
Hi, Jen, and if I could add, part of what we wanted to do with today's presentation was to have some updated artist renderings of what some of these features might look like. And these renderings were not part of the July event. So we're hoping that if we can help people imagine and envision what these features might look like, they might think about them a little bit differently.
Thanks, Jana, for that. So that concludes our Mentimeter exercise. We are now going to move over, and this will be our formal Q&A part of the presentation. So feel free to set aside your mobile device so that you can take part in this one. To remind you to ask a question, you can type it in the Q&A area at the bottom of your screen. So you can tap on where the bubbles and the letters Q&A. If you're joining us by phone, then you would press *9 on your phone, and then we will unmute your microphone so that you can ask a question verbally. So we have one question in, and this one I believe will go to Jane. And Sheila asks, why was that design without piles considered to be the best?
Hi, Sheila. That's a good question. We are just starting the design right now. And so once we get everybody's feedback, then we will get into the nitty gritty of the design. And it may come up that the piles are needed in some locations. But for now, we feel that the monolithic concrete walkway will be without piles. But you know what, all options are still open, and we'll be working through that design as we go. Thanks.
Thanks, Jane. We have a question from Juliet, who asks, will there be ladders at the swimming dock?
I think I can probably answer that question. I think the answer is yes. It's deep water. We have ladders installed at some of the deep water swimming at the Breakwater Park and Gord Edgar Downey Pier. And it's really the best way to get out of the water onto the edge. That being said, it's potential that a swimming raft could have a low edge, which would allow more easy access, in and out of the water. But that would all be part of the detailed design.
Thank you, Neil. Sheila has a follow-up question, and she asks, why was this style selected as best, not just the pile issue? Yeah, go ahead, Neil.
Would it be possible to ask Sheila to clarify her question a little bit? I think she may be asking, why did we choose a concrete walkway nestled into the breakwall stones versus an elevated, sort of more traditional boardwalk experience. But I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah. I was actually just thinking the same thing, Neil. Sheila, we'd love to hear from from you verbally, I'd be happy to, unmute your microphone if you're able to speak, and we can have a conversation. There you go. I'm going to turn on your microphone, Sheila. Go ahead.
Hi, you've actually got two of us in the family here.
Oh, okay, great. Go ahead.
Sheila and Francine. And the question was, Jane showed, I think it was Jane, that showed the three different styles. One was, yes, Neil, that elevated walkway. There was one where the paving was right against all the rocks and filling in all the gaps. And then the third, it was just said, this one, not why that one over the others. Was it, structural? There are lots of different reasons behind it. And there was some concept about the water and where the water was heading, but I'd like to understand why that one was selected, because it wasn't really explained why. Thank you.
Jane, are you comfortable fielding that question, or do you want to take a crack at it and I can fill in the gaps?
I think maybe Neil, it's probably better from the city side. I think that part of it is design, sort of the feel or the look that was looking for the city. But I'll let you respond to that. If that's, they're all possible, and
yeah, I'd be pleased to respond. So, in the three scenarios that we three traditional approaches to a hard surface walkway that we showed, one would have been elevated above the break wall. It may also have not sat above the break wall. It may have sat offset from the break wall, and that, given the risk of the wave action, that offset would likely have been on the basin side, which puts the user or the walkway, pedestrians farther away from sort of that vibrant lakefront. So we didn't feel that that experience would be as rewarding. It's also quite a costly approach to building a walkway experience, and it actually sits higher in the landscape, so that sort of emotional and literal connection to the water elevation is much different, more like an elevated pier you would see in Florida, for example. So that's why those are the kind of main reasons. One was experiential and the other one was really cost oriented. The remaining two options are very, very similar. They're both a hard surface pathway that is nestled inside where the existing stones are. The exact elevation is not known at this time, but it's likely a little bit below the top. Jane's going to correct me here, but a little bit below the top, inches below the top of the existing stones right now.
That's where we think it's going to be. Yeah.
Yeah, and if it's too low, then the water washes across it and it doesn't work. If it's too high, then it's unnecessarily built up. But the other sort of fundamental reasons for building a walkway out of a large, more or less heavy piece of concrete versus a thin piece of concrete with steel pilings that would be hidden. You wouldn't see them. They're hidden inside the rock. Again, is a cost issue. And the pilings that are hidden inside the rock with the concrete walkway on the surface, which is the upper right image, you don't see the pilings. They're totally part of the structure. It's a more expensive approach to build, and the structure immediately below that is a less expensive approach. I will comment that there is a possibility we may have had to do a low wall in either of those models. While the low wall is required from a structural perspective in the option that we currently are favoring, it also provides protection for users on the pathway during those really, really bad storms if people happen to be out there. So that may have come out through the design exercise as well. So the low wall wasn't really a deciding factor in either way from an aesthetic perspective, because we may have to have it in both scenarios. But like Jane said, the door is open, and we expect we're also going to explore other hard surface options that look very similar to this. But aesthetically, the intent is essentially a hard surfaced walkway, sort of nestled within the existing stones. I hope I've answered the question. Thank you.
Sheila, I hope that helps. I have that slide up. Please unmute yourself if you need some extra clarity. We also will be sharing Lori Paquin's email and Neil's email, that if you have any follow-up questions.
Thank you. That clarified significantly. We're from an area, we're from Halifax originally, so boardwalks and walkways are very important in our lives. So thank you, as is accessibility. Thank you.
Thanks, Sheila. Thank you for spending your evening with us as well. We have a follow-up question from, or sorry, not a follow-up question. We have a question from Krista, who asks, is a non-motorized watercraft access included in the design or current add-on options?
Yeah, I'd be pleased to field that one as well, Jen. So the way Jana described the swimming that's within our conceptual plan and our base budget, the water access or swimming raft, she did identify that it could be used for obviously swimming, sitting on the water's edge, dangling your feet, model sailboats, but also for small human-powered watercraft. I think there would not be necessarily restrictions on that, but it is not being designed at this time as a small craft facility, just due to sort of the spatial constraint and with the expectation that the majority of use would likely be likely swimming and or from time to time, model sailboats. But it's a long way to launch from the shore to carry your stand-up paddleboard down from. But there would be no restrictions in general. But there may be other superior locations for small craft launching if the swimming facility, is to only be the size that it's proposed in the base project.
Neil, I have slides 35 and 36 up, if it helps to refer to those in explaining that particular question.
Yeah, just flip to the next slide, Jen. That'd be great. Yeah, so I think this helps people understand what is in the proposed concept plan. It's a sort of mid-scale swimming raft, essentially. This rough conceptual plan shows an opportunity for some benching to put your towel on, sit down and on the water's edge. There's two ladders shown in this particular rendering. There's a lowered edge to make that sort of more of a pool edge experience. There's certainly nothing that would prevent someone from, paddling their sea kayak up to this location and stopping and getting off and sitting on the edge. So I think there is some capacity, but it's not a large scale sort of launch location or destination, just given its location on the promenade. It's out quite a long ways, and also given that it's fairly modest in scale, certainly in comparison to the West Street Boat Launch or the entire Confederation Basin Marina, facility.
Thank you, Neil. Krista, I hope that answers your question. I don't see any other questions in the Q&A right now. I'll give everyone, okay, you're welcome, Krista. Krista just dropped into the chat that it did answer her question. Is the project team feeling like we can wrap for the night? I don't see any other questions.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everyone for joining us this evening. We know that these online engagement sessions aren't quite as fun as when we can meet in the Memorial Hall and have these sort of large scale in-person workshops where our consultants can present and have that face-to-face experience. So we really appreciate you joining in. We know everyone is fatigued from online meetings and so forth. And we hope that'll change in the future. But we are taking extra time and making extra effort to try and get information to the public because of this kind of period in history that we're in. For example, we installed some really fresh graphic panels in the park, in Battery Park on Tuesday or Wednesday. And they're white backdrops, and they show all of Jana's concept images, including what's in the current approved budget, and obviously some of those images about what could happen if additional funds were brought to the project by other sources. So please go down to Battery Park, have a look at them in person if you haven't seen them, because they're really great and fun panels. You get a nice fall day and you can enjoy and kind of imagine, what the experience would be like. But I just want to assure the community that within the base budget, the walkway that is currently designed, that's to the corner of the breakwater or the breakwall, is really quite a dramatic experience from a pedestrian and on-water experience. It's very, very significant in scale, certainly in comparison to other municipalities that have much more modest short piers and things like that. To be able to walk 240 meters out into the middle of the lake is really quite rewarding. And the views from that location are staggering. And the activity, whether it's the ferry or the sailing or the motorboats, the activity is fantastic, and the views back to the city are also great. So I wouldn't underestimate by a long ways what we have on paper. So we're hoping that we'll get some support from people about those designs, and definitely some suggestions about how we can make them better and how we can sort of tailor them to the needs of the community. But again, just thanks a lot for your time tonight.
Thank you, Neil. I feel like when you were describing the waterfront experience, that would have been a good time to have our waterfront water sounds. So we'll have that on hand for next time. I have a couple of housekeeping things that I need to do before we wrap for the evening. So I am going to launch a poll, which is also anonymous. And what we're asking for is your feedback on the session itself. This isn't specific to the project. So this information, I used to say that online engagement is new. We're over a year in, so it's no longer new, but we are always looking for ways to improve. So by completing this survey, our department in communications and public engagement, we use it to improve the way that we reach out to you. I'm going to leave that up for another minute. I have also dropped into the chat a link directly over to the project page on Get Involved Kingston. The survey is now open and it will close November 4th at 4 p.m. You do need to have an account on Get Involved Kingston, but it's free to register. And then you can also subscribe to email updates to make sure that you're always learning about new engagement opportunities in the city. This session was live streamed on YouTube and will be available immediately following the session. We had 33 people who were registered to participate tonight, and we had 14 join. And I did notice over the evening that a lot of people stepped off. So I really hope it's to enjoy the wonderful 20-degree day that we had here in Kingston. On behalf of the City of Kingston, thank you again for investing time with us for this project. We're very excited about it, and we will be back in touch soon. I don't believe that we're hosting another public session, but I know that we're really excited to bring the designs forward to you.
Thanks, Jen. That's great. We will be providing a full response back to participants in the project on what we've heard. As you said, we will also be coming back to the community with final proposed concept plans and taking in feedback on those as well. So while that may not necessarily be in the format that we're doing today, we're certainly going to have the door open and to discussion and feedback on our sort of final design proposal for the project. And that is likely to occur in the winter. Thanks.
All right, thanks everyone. Have a lovely evening.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Have a good night.
Bye now.